Okay, we're going to continue our look at preferences users today, and this time we're going to focus on the next three areas in our series here, and we're going to start with our HR screen. For the most part, this screen is just informational. You will see the same list of users we saw earlier on our details screen. Same list filters through as it does in many of these screens. And should you wish to, you can also create a new user with the plus button on this screen as well. But really, the informational area is the HR details found here on the right. And there are some basic things you would find here. The ability to enter an employee number for any kind of internal tracking you may need. An ability to put in their hire date or their fire date if they are such dates, or if you track that information. Their social security number, if you're in the United States and you track this information. Their status. This is one of the useful features on this screen. So you can't actually change the status by clicking on the list on the left, but this is where you can actually do that. So if you do terminate someone, you can certainly indicate that, or if they go on leave or what have you. You can also track their birth date and age if you wish to do so. But one of the other useful features on this screen that's sort of hidden is this little login section. And it might not be obvious by looking at it, but this padlock icon is actually interactive. And you might want to do this. This is one of the few areas you can go to reset a user's password if they lose it. And also if for some reason you wish to set or change the initials that are displayed on your invoices or throughout certain screens in the program that represent who this employee is. You can actually set that here as well. And then we can also insert a picture of the employee or put in a minor bio or comments. A word on comments. If you do track things here that may necessarily only wish to be known by your HR people, keep in mind that there is no way through security to lock down only this one tab. If you implement security, people either have access to the entire preferences section or they don't. There is no selective setup for that. So if you do put HR comments in here that may be negative or disparaging, or things that only your HR people really should know, just be aware that there may be other people that do in fact have access to see that. The next section we'll look at is the time expense section. And this again is one of the more useful screens that you're going to come into. And again, same list on the left, same ability to add new users as many of the other screens. But really, this is the big bulk of it. This is pretty much all set once and forget type of settings, but they are quite useful. So we'll just very briefly go over what we are going to do with these and how they work. So the first one I want to show you is this box here, time and expense details options. Default date, default project, default employee, and default type. What these actually control is found back in our time expense module on our details tab. And when we actually go in and we go new, it controls which of these fields are pre-populated and specifically what are they pre-populated with. So just depending on how you enter your time, how you organize and do things, how you run your business, will determine how you might want to set these. It does default some of the more obvious things. For the most part, most people are going to default the current date. Projects, if you're putting in a whole series of time entries, perhaps you have one person designated to enter time for every employee. So you might want to do one entire project at a time. So you can set this so that if you make a new record, it will automatically take on the same project as the previous record. That will save you one click when you go through setting all those things. So you can set that. Same thing with the user. You can set it to automatically default who you're currently logged in as, or whoever the last record was that you entered, or blank. And same thing with time. Same thing with type. You can have it default to having the next slip automatically be set as a time entry, or you can have it automatically be set as an expense entry. So those can be set to save you a little time there. The next section is the required hours boxes. So primarily these are used in two places. The first place you'll see these is in your time expense module on the time tab. So for whomever you currently have selected on your list of employees, you will automatically see hours required, and you'll see the appropriate days of the week boxes filled in with those same amount of hours as we had set up here in preferences. That will help you know pretty much at a glance by looking at that chart if someone's missing hours, maybe they forgot to log their hours, or they're slacking off, who knows. Convenient way to see that information. The other place these are used is determining overtime when running a payroll report. So the payroll report will look at the entire week, determine what the total number of required hours is, and then based on how many hours the user actually entered that week, the payroll report will break out X number of hours as overtime, if there are any. The next section are actual rates. So rates are fairly obvious with a couple of exceptions. So charge rate. Obviously, this is the rate you actually charge the employee out at, the rate that they're billed at. How much you charge your customers for their services. And this is obviously an hourly rate. The next rate is the cost rate. Now, this one does bear a little explanation, because this is not actually just a straight hourly rate that you pay your employee. You could do that, but the actual design of the software is intended to be such that this should be a loaded rate. This should take into account a calculated overhead multiplier to give you a more accurate representation of the real costs that it takes to employ this employee for 1 hour. And then we also have flags that you can designate, is this person an hourly employee or not? And is this person generally an overhead employee or not? We realize this is not absolute, but you should base it on whether or not the majority of their hours are overhead hours, or the majority of their hours are actually on billable projects. And then the last section on this screen, the project value list format for time module. Well, that's a mouthful. What does that actually do? Well, what this actually controls is, again, back in our time module, on our time tab, when we go to enter a time entry in our hot list, in our hot bar here, when you click into the project details drop down, it shows you a drop down of all the projects that this employee is actually on that are currently active. And the format that the entry appears on this drop down is what is controlled. So in this case, we have the option set to show project number and project name. So that's actually what we show there. But you could very easily change it to be just names, just numbers, or name then number, to pretty much fit however you choose to do things. If you run your business on all project numbers, that's fine. If you work off names only, that's fine. You can do that too. And then the next screen and the last screen we're going to look at in this particular video, very briefly, is the sync screen. For the most part, this screen is a set once and forget. It does have some user-defined settings, though. Particularly, we're going to be looking at this use synchronization option. Basically, this is actually a permission setting. And what this says is, well, is this person allowed to use Outlook synchronization or not? You can turn that on and off by changing that option. If it is on, we do also have some other options: sync contacts, sync emails, sync events. Now, these are not actually permissions. These don't allow or disallow those things to be synced. What they actually do is when you go in to do a sync, you get a box that looks like this. And basically those just set a default as to which of these three checkboxes will be automatically checked by default. So if, for instance, you have in your company that you really only care about syncing contacts back and forth to Outlook, well, you can very easily set that and turn the other two off so that the option's automatically set that way, so you don't have to recheck it and change it every single time. There's also a couple of options here. If you are syncing with a Mac, we do sync with the Mac. You can sync emails, contacts, and events to the appropriate standard Apple applications. And you can specify which those are or Entourage. Just a quick note, the Entourage options actually are deprecated, so these will be removed in a future version. So as of right now, we do only sync with Apple Mail, Apple Contacts, and Apple Calendar. And then, of course, on the PC, we do only sync with Outlook. And then the name of the Outlook mailbox, and this will be whatever is appropriate for you based on your Outlook setup. For some people, it is just your name. For some people, it's just your email. For some people, it's mailbox dash your name. Whatever it is what you're going to put here. And then you can specify a basic textual-based email signature that will automatically be injected into any emails that you create that originate from clicked links in AO itself. And that is all we're going to look at in this video. And in the next video in this series, we will finish up our look at preferences users.